PlayStation 5 has surpassed another sales milestone. According to a press release from Sony, the console, launched in November of 2020, has surpassed 10 million units sold. Veronica Rogers, PlayStation's SVP of Global Sales and Business Ops, noted in part, quote, "Pushing through supply challenges and a global pandemic, we're proud to have delivered a transformational gaming experience that is captivating players around the world," end quote. Meanwhile, the brand's CEO, the sometimes controversial Jim Ryan, said in part, quote, "While PS5 has reached more households faster than any of our previous consoles, we still have a lot of work ahead of us as demand for PS5 continues to outstrip supply. I want gamers to know that while we continue to face unique challenges throughout the world that affect our industry and many others, improving inventory levels has remained a top priority for SIE," end quote. At 10 million sold in about 8 months on the market, PlayStation 5 has already outsold consoles like Saturn, Dreamcast, and TurboGrafx-16, and sets Sega's original console, the Master System, in its sight next, along with the Wii U, which it should pass in lifetime sales in the next few months. For its part, Microsoft's rival Xbox Series X and S consoles are also selling at a brisk pace. According to Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella, quote, "The Xbox Series S and X are our fastest selling consoles ever, with more consoles sold life to date than any previous generation during the same time frame. We're all in on games," end quote. Microsoft continues to stubbornly avoid talking specific numbers. It hasn't regularly spoken about hardware sales since its monthly tradition back in the Xbox 360 days. But in the no guesses place Xbox Series X and S at around 6.5 million sold, 35% behind PS5. Like Sony, Microsoft also laments supply issues, though evidence indicates that these issues appear to be lifting, at least when it comes to Xbox Series S, which is fairly easy to find. Xbox's 3 previous consoles, the original Xbox from 2001, 2005's Xbox 360, and 2013's Xbox One, sold 24 million, 84 million, and 50 million respectively. PS1, PS2, PS3, and PS4 sold 102 million, 155 million, 87 million, and 115 million respectively, and PS4 itself is still selling alongside PS5. Brock Smith wrote into us and said, "When Sony said they projected to sell 14 million consoles before year's end, I chuffed and said no way, but they announced 10 million sold before the end of July, and now I must say, it seems my dismissiveness was premature. What say you all?" Chris, what do you think about these strong sales numbers, the fastest selling PlayStation and maybe home console ever so far?
Yeah, I mean, it's surprising given, you know, the just the state of the world and even just like with the supply constraints taken into account, the fact that they've been able to do this is actually like super impressive. I wonder how long this will carry, but there's no doubt that those are impressive. That's impressive shit. Like, sincerely, like especially when you consider the fact that like I feel like this happens every time a new console comes out, but like everybody always says it's like, you know, who's really gonna buy a new console? It's like it turns out everybody. Yeah. it turns out literally all people, like basically. So it's cool.
What do you think, Dustin, about these strong sales?
Yeah, I mean, Chris hit it totally right on the head with the fact that they were able to do this during not only COVID, but in addition to chip shortage, which is in relation to COVID. I mean, think about the chip shortage and the fact that it's not just PlayStation or game consoles. Like, it's so bad that it's affected the auto industry very heavily to the point where the car that I bought last year used is worth more now than what I bought it for because the car market is so fucked up. And some of that maybe, but not exactly chip related, but I know a lot of it is.
No, it is. As far as I know, there are like tens of thousands of cars in like Michigan and other places sitting on racetracks and shit, waiting for like chips. They're done. Right. Yeah.
So,
and I'm sorry. I also want to say that I think a lot of those companies furloughed their workers because they don't need to build anymore. They can't.
Right.
Yeah.
So the fact that Sony was able to pull off that many is just awesome. You got to wonder how many would they have sold if there was no supply, or would have just all been sold through faster. You got to imagine that they may have lost some sales in the fact that some people were like, well, I can buy an Xbox today, and I'm tired of waiting to get a PS5. Maybe I'll get one at some other point. Surely that's happened. So they're probably like, you know, very happy, popping champagne or whatever, but they're also in the back of their mind like, what if we could have just gotten a few more, you know?
Definitely. I am amazed about this from multiple angles. And I do, before I go in deeper into my own thoughts, I did want to bring in two other questions. And I wanted to read these at the same time because they are opposite sides of the same coin. Bobby Rigo wrote in and said, "Hey boys, Sony just recently announced that 10 million PlayStation 5s have been sold. While that's undoubtedly impressive, I think it's more important to look at how many of those PS5s are actually in the hands of the players. It's neither a secret nor a surprise that scalpers and bots have been scooping them up the literal second they're alive through retailers. I'd be interested to see how many PSN accounts have registered with a PlayStation 5. Thoughts?" And then Tristan Wilbur says, "With the news of 10 million PS5 consoles sold, how long can we expect until the narrative that scalpers are stealing all the consoles go away? Every single announcement or sales report is met with passive-aggressive comments saying how most of those are from scalpers, even though it's realistically likely barely a fraction. I'm convinced that even after supply is satiated, people will continue this narrative that Sony is somehow not keeping up, despite the sales numbers still being truly impressive, getting into the millions of gamers' homes." Thoughts? So I wanted to bring this up because I see this argument too, and I just want to remind people, and I'm not attacking Bobby here specifically, but this argument that scalpers are coming in and taking these consoles and then not reselling them is brain dead. It makes no sense. People need to stop making the argument. It makes no sense. PlayStation 5s are getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper on the aftermarket. Why would you hold it? It's not like you're buying a toy and keeping it in a package, or like a valuable set of Pokemon cards or Magic the Gathering cards or something. It is an electronic. It's one of the few things that needs to be sold quickly or it loses its value. So I think the scalper thing, while not overstated from people's frustration and maybe not being mitigated well enough, scalpers might be getting them, but they're selling them. They're still selling them. We hear from people all the time buying them from scalpers. So it's not that scalpers are accounting for X, Y, or Z. We don't know. It's just like people think that the scalpers are buying them and then just sitting on them. It doesn't make any fucking sense. So I wanted to say that from the top. But these numbers are impressive. We've already said it from a device point of view, manufacturer, the chip shortages, COVID itself, the fractured nature of how COVID forced companies to begin dealing with all these things. I mean, they had to put the console out essentially not together as a company, like they're from their houses and shit. I mean, that's a lot. And I remember reading, I think it was Jim Ryan gave an interview about how like engineers had to figure this shit out from afar. Like they can't work together in their lab environments and all of the rest. So from that perspective, it's amazing too. And then I think it's even more amazing because I don't think there's any must-have games on PlayStation 5. And I've said that before. Like I think PlayStation 5 has great games. I think it's an awesome machine. I own 2. But there's 3 in this house because Micah has one as well. But I still feel like that's maybe the most impressive thing of all is that there's nothing that I think is like a killer app. And in fact, we'll talk about sales numbers in a little while where it seems like PS5's audience agrees, which makes it even weirder. So from all of those perspectives, I think it's notable. 10 million is huge. It'll pass Wii U in lifetime sales in under a year. And we'll be trucking on to pass. I think next up would be like GameCube and Xbox in the early to mid 20s will be the next one that they pass. And congratulations to Microsoft too. They're doing great. It's just that, again, the numbers comparatively are not suitable for them to announce them outright, which is why they don't and why people have to kind of do the math and figure it out themselves. And the number 6.5 is the number that I think a lot of people are kind of settling on. So 35% distant. And I brought up the numbers also, if you want to compare the two brands, the highest selling Xbox console has never sold better than the lowest selling PlayStation console. And so it's like comparing two different things. And I think people need to start isolating and not alienating, but isolating and segregating these two ideas. Microsoft, it seems like clearly they want subscriptions. I don't think they care too much about the hardware. And I've been saying that over and over again. And maybe if the hardware continues to lag, in quotes, maybe they'll come over to PlayStation. Like I've been predicting that they will make a catered Game Pass for PlayStation in the future years.